are live
You
in
are
person.
live.
How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's good. Welcome to another episode of Taco Tuesday, where we talk about everything health, essentially good food, fitness, mental, and emotional health. And it's basically we're looking for success in every sense of your being, right? It's body, mind, spirit, and the heart. I'm Nick.
I'm Rebecca, and our goal with these live talks is to provide high value info and some actions that you can take. So stay to the end so you can get all that good info to actually make the changes in your life.
And I'm Brandon. If you are with us live on Facebook in our group, let us know you're here. drop a hello, and let us know you can hear us with a quick thumbs up. We always appreciate that. And if you are not with us live in our Facebook group, why the heck aren't you? You can't give us a thumbs up or comment if you're not here. So come join us in the Facebook group. Drop the fat, not the tacos. And you can hang out with us, ask us questions, get insight and support from us and the rest of the community that is here. Plus, you can watch us do all of these talks and all of the blunders that come with them live. So yeah, what are you doing? Get in here.
Wonders. Hey, before we jump in on today's topic, if you haven't noticed, I mean, we're a little bit later than we usually are on our Tuesdays. And it's because we ran a really cool workshop today that I feel that we got a lot of really good feedback from. We've done it a few times and it just keeps getting better and better every time. So you want to keep an eye out for those type of stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a blast today. It was a really good time. If you have questions about those, we will be doing those workshops of one sort or another. We've got a few different things coming up soon, so we'll be announcing another one very soon. It'll be a little bit different from what we just did. The launch pad, we just did a couple of those, and we're gonna move on to something else. But don't worry, the launch pad will come back around. All right. Ready to jump in?
That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Anything else? So I had this like just a really powerful discussion the other day. It was really just a topic discussion, an open discussion. And the topic was forgiveness. And I felt like I wanted to bring it here just because, I felt like while this discussion was happening, of course, I'm going like, oh man, there are all these parallels to health and wellness. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, yeah, I wanted to bring it here, forgiveness, and this will be a much more open-ended discussion than we usually have. Usually we have some like kind of talking points that we want to get to. But today I wanted it to be more of an open-ended thing.
And I'm actually really excited because I really love talking about forgiveness, especially. It's been very heavy on my mind. And I think a lot of times we forget that it's a very multifaceted thing, forgiveness. And, it's also really, really, really hard for most people because on some level you're required to admit you made a mistake or you have an imperfection. And now I know for me personally, I'm super humble and have no problem admitting when I make mistakes at all. But for some people, it's really hard when you are trying to have a positive mindset and then you're trying to, apologize to someone or ask for forgiveness. And the whole time your brain is going, oh, you messed up. You're having to apologize. You messed up. So I think you really need to do some shifting with your mindset about coming from a negative place that, everybody makes mistakes and nobody's perfect, that, it's hard, but we have to ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And this was when Brandon mentioned this, wanting to do this one to me for the first time, like I was really excited about it because it was detrimental. I don't know if that's the right word because that almost puts a negative spin on it, but it was huge in becoming who I am today versus who I was 5-6 years ago. I was a really negative person. And what I really had to do was learn to forgive not only other people but myself. And
Mhm.
that was really big for me in order to overcome some of the things that was stopping me from moving forward and taking a step in the right direction as far as mental, physical, and emotional health.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, and I hear that a lot in the here we hear it here, and in our coaching,
Mhm.
um, and in a lot of other places. But that's the thing. Like you just said, it holds us back, right? Holding resentments, right? Because that's ultimately what it is, whether it's against ourselves or others. I mean, it really is like, I mean, that weighs us down, right? That's like carrying around, a bag of bricks everywhere you go.
Mhm.
And it's exhausting. It takes up our time. It takes up our energy. It distracts us from the other important things in our lives. It keeps us
Yeah.
from devoting our energy to the things that are important. It obviously, affects our relationships, especially, I mean, obviously holding resentments against other people affects our
That can hurt.
relationships, but holding resentments against ourselves, I mean, that,
Mhm.
those, that has a far reaching effect in our lives that I think we tend to underestimate or not even think about,
Yep.
right? Begrudging
Yeah.
ourselves for things that we've done that are probably beyond our power, right? I mean, usually it's for things that have happened in the past.
Yeah.
So naturally, when we let go of those things, right, when we can forgive, those things are so beneficial,
Mhm.
right? Allows us now to prioritize the important things in our
Yeah.
lives unencumbered.
Yeah. I think that's you really wrapped it up well there because it's basically I feel like, and I've used this in the past, but basically by holding on to things, even when you're doing it unintentionally, by holding on to
Mhm.
things that cause emotional strain. I call that kind of or strain or tension or whatever between yourself and other people. Um, it's a toxin. A
Mhm.
lot of times I'll say that that's emotional poison.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really important to let that go because, well, like you said, it just holds us back from any forward movement, and it can cause deeper issues, especially if you're really holding on to something. Like I said, even unintentionally, you might react in a way that's really really negative towards somebody else,
Yeah.
or even towards yourself.
Absolutely. And something that I think we don't think about enough is that forgiveness is not just about when somebody offers you an apology or apologizes for something that you then graciously give them your forgiveness, but something I in particular have been focused on is forgiving people before they even ask for forgiveness. Giving them that gift without them needing to ask for it because it's hard for them. Maybe they can't even see what's going on. Maybe they're
Mhm.
dealing with something. There's always something going on in someone else's life that I always offer up my forgiveness before they even have a chance to ask for it, or even if they don't ask for it. And it's just really a much healthier place for me to be because otherwise, like you said, Nick, I'm holding on to grudges. I'm holding on to those things. And the only person it's hurting is myself.
Yeah.
And that's not
Mhm.
helping anybody to hold on to a grudge like that.
Yeah, yeah, and and I don't know. Most of us have heard that, like, that saying or that platitude, whatever you want to call it, like, um, resentments. They're like taking poison and expecting the other person to die,
Right.
right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is like, I hate it when people say that, but it's like, God damn it, it's true.
It's true.
And and you have to let that stuff go because it really does hold us back. But you know I think there's such an interesting thing. Like I wouldn't say I'm quick to to forgive people. I try to be, but I'm much quicker to forgive other people than I am to forgive myself. And it's been a big practice for me, if we're getting into, kind of how you can practice forgiveness. But it's been a big practice for me to think of myself a little bit from the outside and not hold myself to a standard that I wouldn't hold another human being to. Right? Somebody else drops a dish. I'm not like, you idiot, right? I drop a dish, first thing out of my mouth, idiot, right?
Yeah.
And it's small stuff. It's self-talk, right? A lot of it.
I think there are a lot of self-blame, and that's self-criticism too, that goes along with that. And you're right. It's why are we so hard on ourselves when
Exactly.
we would not hold somebody else to that same degree for something minor,
Right.
And then if it comes to anything bigger, like a betrayal of some sort, it doesn't matter how big or how small, but it can really hurt. But what good is it going to do letting go, or hanging on for X amount of time? It's not going to do any good. I mean,
Right.
basically, when it comes down to it, I think that if somebody, you ask yourself, did this person do this to be a mean person? Did this person have malice in their intention?
Right.
Most likely not. And if it turns out that they did have that and they intended on hurting you, then they probably shouldn't be a part of your world anyway. And I know that's kind of negative to say, but it can be really damaging to have those types of people in your world. So there shouldn't be any room for that.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that to yourself, if it's something significant you can't let go, probably worth going to a therapist,
I was going to say that makes it really hard when you can't forgive yourself either. That's another big thing that we forget about. Brandon pointed it out. If somebody makes a mistake, oh, it's okay, I'll forgive you. But the moment you make a mistake, you beat yourself up. And, we're all guilty of doing that. I'm very guilty of doing that. I've gotten a lot better at it. But part of being a forgiving person is remembering that we are also human. So I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to forgive myself. Even if the person I'm asking for forgiveness from can't forgive me, I'm going to forgive myself because I'm human and I make mistakes. And my mom actually said something to me once that I thought about when you were talking, Nick, that people are human. No matter who they are, no matter how much they love you, no matter how much they want to support you, people will always let you down because they're people and they're imperfect and they're human. So having forgiveness is crucial to being healthy for other people and for yourself.
Absolutely. Hey, just going to put it out here. Anybody who's listening either now or later, like if you're a human, let us know.
Are you a human?
Yeah, right.
Drop a gift in the comments.
Yes. Right? Give us a big yes if you're human. Yeah. But more than that, like if that's consistent with you, like you hold yourself to a standard perhaps much higher than other people. And sometimes it's the other way around. During this discussion that I had the other day, somebody brought up, they're like, oh no, I'm totally fine with that. I don't necessarily, I'm great with myself. It's everyone else that I have a problem with. And I found that so interesting for me, because I'm totally the opposite. Right. Rachel says sometimes. I love it. Sometimes.
You think that means she's only sometimes human, or she's sometimes holds those standards?
Sometimes human. I think she's superhuman most of the time.
I was going to say superhuman most of the time. If you know Rachel, being human is a step down for Rachel.
It's actually really funny. I'm going to share this little bit, but with the situation I'm in with an ill parent, we do have a social worker that helps us out from time to time. And I was telling her some of the things that I feel guilty about. And she just looked at me and she goes, I told my 5-year-old son the other day at the top of my lungs to put his damn shoes on. And I'm having a really hard time forgiving myself for that. And I think a lot of the times it's things where you lose patience, where maybe you're in a rush, maybe things aren't all going so great. And it's not the thing that you're upset about that's actually upsetting you. There's other things going on that you, the other person, may or may not be aware of that's really causing them overwhelm or anxiety, and you're just an easy person to let it out on. And that's part of forgiveness too, is remembering that that person has a lot going on and they're not really mad at me. What are they really mad at? And,
Yeah.
being there for that person.
Right.
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of empathy and awareness to even, outside of yourself to be able to look at it from another person's perspective.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And I think those points you just brought up were good, Brandon. I'm sorry. I know you were just starting to say something, but that, anxiety, stress, all of those things create a huge they're a huge factor on our physical health as well. That's big for our mental health, but they also have big effects on our physical health. We don't need to get into the science of it all, but like it can go as far to it can give you a heart attack. Like that's a real thing.
Right. Yeah. Stress
Just from hanging on to something that doesn't need to be hung on to, it's kind of like holding a grudge. Those types of things can jack up your blood pressure. It can screw up your heart. It can screw up your mental health. None of it's good.
I know I was waiting for you to allow Brandon to start talking about all the science of how it's going to mess up your blood pressure and
get into it.
levels and all that stuff. But
yeah, get into it.
Fine.
No, I won't get deep into that because we've been over that, right? If you want to know more about that, we have a whole talk about the physiological effects of stress on the body and even on weight loss. I think that was that was kind of the specific topic. But yeah, that's it. I mean,
but that's what holding a grudge does, is it causes stress. It causes stress and anxiety. It's more troubles for you to have on your mind, and stress only causes pimples and sleepless nights, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before. And like you mentioned sleep. You just mentioned sleep. That's huge. And stress of any sort. And even if it's, like I said, if it's subconscious, it's there, but you're not really sure what's causing it. It can cause you to sleep like crap, which can lead into a multitude of other health issues.
Other things.
Mainly lack of energy, lack of motivation. Those are big. A deeper level of anxiety, depression. None of these things are good. It can actually even increase like physical pain, like in your joints. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we don't even need to get into the psychosomatic effects of stress, but to me, there's so many things wrapped up in this. I mean, part of it's human like value, right? Value we place on others, the value we place on ourselves.
Yes.
That's something that I actually really try to stay connected with. What kind of standard am I holding this person to, or myself? But speaking about other people, I'd like to think that most people are worth more than whatever mistake they have made.
For sure.
Right.
Nice.
And
very well put.
I do not want to go around the world making enemies or disliking or hating people that I should love, right?
Yeah.
And or people who at least deserve my respect, right? And if I can do that for another person, then I know that it's possible to do it for myself. But if I go around the world, vilifying, everyone around me, I'm going to end up with a small world.
Mm-hmm.
And the more people that we can include in our lives, the more enriched our lives are. So forgiveness, when we talk about like, what does forgiveness have to do with our actual health? I think, we just talked about, physiologically, but emotionally, we need support. We need to have a big world with lots of people in it. And if we are constantly creating resentments and holding grudges, then we make our world small and we don't have the support. And funny thing, when you forgive people, people forgive you.
What? What?
Yeah, I know.
How does that work?
No. Right? But it can be a really hard thing to do. Sometimes people do wrong us.
Mhm.
Right. And so that's the other side of the coin, right? Is, valuing ourselves.
Yeah.
And you can forgive somebody and still have boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? This person, yep, they did something horrible to me. It doesn't mean that they deserve to die. It doesn't mean that they deserve horrible things. It doesn't, but it also doesn't have to mean that that I let them into my life and they can create wreckage, right?
Yeah.
They're that way for a reason. It doesn't fit in my life. I forgive them. I can wish them the best. I can even pray for them, but I can't let them in my door.
Yeah. Right.
It's good to
I
have
mean,
those boundaries, and it's also good to remember that, like there are definitely times that I can think back to I have wronged people or I have made mistakes. And I think that I'm very blessed that some of those people still have me in their life, despite the fact that I may have wronged them in their eyes or that I may have made a mistake, because I like to think that I'm a good person because I try to be a good person. And so it's also important to remember that boundaries also can be, I have a friend that I'm having a very hard time forgiving, but they're important to my life. So they're still part of my life. I just have boundaries with them where there are certain things that I already know about them. I already know about our friendship, but I value, love, and respect them for what they do bring to my life. But I'm still very careful to have boundaries with those people that I know I need to have those boundaries with. So it doesn't always have to be quite as harsh, although sometimes there are people that you do need to be like, you're toxic for my life and I wish you the best, but you're just not someone who can actively be part of my life. But then there's also having enough forgiveness to remember that people don't need to be cut out of your lives just because they made a mistake, that there are ways to have boundaries with those people without cutting them out entirely.
Totally.
right. Yes, I completely agree.
Balance is hard. That's
Balanced.
balance.
Great way to put it.
Right. That's the balance. You can have boundaries, still, expect respect from people.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. If you're out there and you have maybe an issue with boundaries, let us know, because you're definitely not alone. And we would
Right.
love to know, because
Man,
we
that's
all
a
do
huge,
too, to some level. We're all
Mhm.
searching for that balance. We're all searching
Totally.
for that balance.
yeah, that is huge. That is huge. That's another like topic on its own. Boundaries. I mean, how do you practice that? Right. And we've talked about that a bit.
Mhm.
Speaking of practicing, how do you guys, because I'm relatively new to the world of being a forgiving person. Part of that is because of my work with you guys and my mindset changing and being a more positive person. But, if you were the people who are listening, they're having trouble. And how do you practice forgiveness? How do you become a better forgiver? What are some things that you can do to get yourself in that zone and in that mindset? I would love to hear what both of you have to say on that.
Oh man.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a few things. Resentments tend to grow in my world. Like once they're there, they don't tend to like shrink over time for me. They tend to, like,
Not getting smaller.
build and build and build and build, right? Like, because I'm the overthinker, right? I'm just like very much like, oh, and then what else did that person do to me in the past, right?
Add
And
that to the list.
right, right.
Yeah.
You're
My list
super
of this
terrible.
yeah. So I have to, one, and we already kind of talked about this, like withhold judgment. I have to stop myself, just that self-talk or even, outward talk, of being critical of other people. It's not my job to judge anybody. I don't know what's going on in everyone else's lives. I don't know what happened, 2 minutes before my interaction with another person. I don't know. Everyone's dealing with their stuff. So that's one of them. And that sort of keeps me from having to practice big forgiveness, like later, like, oh, well, now I have to go down this list of, wrongs that this person has done to me. And um, or resentments I might have toward this person. Maybe they haven't done anything wrong to me. Maybe they're just living better than I am, and I resent that. Who knows, right? But instead of allowing that list to grow, being quick to recognize when I'm being judgmental and
Good
keeping
point.
that list from growing in the first place. Because, man, I don't like making amends very much. So, so I try to
So
keep
hard.
myself from having to be in that situation, right? Because I know I need to do it later if it happens. So
Yeah. And the longer you wait, like you said, that resentment doesn't shrink, it gets bigger and bigger, and it can become more and more difficult, and it can get to the point where it doesn't happen.
yeah,
Mhm.
And then there's always something like, man, I wish I had done that. I wish I had at some point,
yeah.
um,
Then it's a
it's
mess.
it's a nagging negativity that it's got its claws in you, and it won't let go.
Yep.
Right. And that's the thing, right? It does harm to us. It harms our soul, right? And that person ends up, taking up a lot of our energy, and they don't even know it, right?
Right.
So not holding people to such a high standard,
That's a good point.
Um,
It can go the same can go for yourself. If you hold yourself to too high a standard, it's hard to forgive yourself. If you're, expecting, I do that a lot. I expect things to be perfect, and I messed that up and I didn't do it exactly the right way the first time so that it's absolutely perfect.
yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, when we practice it with other people, I think we practice it with ourselves better. Another thing that is really, really hard to do for me, but has really helped me is actively really praying for that person. And I'm not a big I'm not talking to God. I'm not going to get into all that, but when I'm holding resentment, I have to do that. I have to really put myself in that space. I need to wish this
Wishing them
person
the
the
best.
best. They did what they did, or they are the way they are for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, doing that is like you're looking at it with compassion or with empathy.
Right.
Mhm.
And that is not easy to do, especially if you're hurt in any way.
Yeah.
But by doing so, even if you are hurt, by doing so, you're allowing yourself the release of fear, right? And anger and any sadness that might be existing, and there's a lot of stuff that comes along with it, like we talked about a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I didn't mean to cut you off if I did.
Mhm.
Okay. But I do know, you can learn to be more forgiving. Like I said, it doesn't
Mhm.
just happen.
It's a practice, sure.
You're right. You can't just say "Oh, I forgive you," and that be the
Mhm.
end of it. If you're hurt, it takes a little bit of time. It does. It's a process. It's not an event. It's not like switching, flipping the switch.
Right.
But it is worthwhile putting the time into that process.
Definitely. Yeah, and I want to jump in for a second because you bring up a really important point that forgiveness is active. Right. It's not just like you just said. It's not just I forgive that person, sure. No, and that's one of my other things. When you forgive someone, you generally you need to tell them.
Mm-hmm. It's usually helpful.
Yeah. And that can be the hardest thing in the world, right?
Right.
Talk with someone. If you're holding a resentment, even if you're not ready to forgive them, perhaps you might be ready to forgive them after a conversation.
Right.
Novel idea. Allow somebody to, explain their side or defend themselves, right? Because, that's what we're doing. We're basically, waging emotional war on somebody who doesn't even know that they're involved, perhaps.
Right.
Or maybe
and even before that, because it's a process, because it's active, because you have to kind of take a little bit of action on this, maybe getting a level of outside perspective too. Maybe before you go speak to them, like you
Mhm.
talk to somebody else, like, do you think I'm crazy, or were they actually in the wrong? Just get a little bit of outside perspective, and that will help you calm down, and then you can, take the next step.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually really funny that you say that. I have one friend in particular that every time I call her and talk to her about an argument or a disagreement that I've had with somebody, the first thing she says to me is, "What did you say to them that pissed them off?" That's always what she says to me. And I'm like, "Oh, well, I said this and they got angry." "Well, why would that upset them?" "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah." And it's really good to have that outside perspective and to have a sounding board, somebody who is on your side, who is in your corner, but will always open your eyes for you and say, "Okay, maybe you didn't mean to be mean to that person, but what did you say right before they got angry? And how would you have taken that? How do you think they took it? Oh, is that making some sense now? Do you think maybe
Yeah.
you owe them an apology?"
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. That's perfect. That's
That was
exactly.
great. Yeah. Because it's true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And friend, you know who you are.
Yeah, she's here.
She's here.
We were just talking with her. Um, you
See,
know,
even he knows who it is.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, for me, Nick, you said a word that kind of stuck with me a few minutes ago, and that was release.
Yeah.
That's the thing, forgiveness is not, when we're talking about forgiveness and what it does for our own health, it's not necessarily, for the other person
Mhm.
all the way. I mean, it's for everyone involved. It's not a
Mhm.
just like, well, I'm just gonna, leave it alone or whatever. Like it's genuine, like, understanding and having some compassion when it's hard sometimes. But release brings to me, or to my mind, the word surrender. And I know that's, probably another topic in and of itself, the idea of
Yeah,
surrender.
but I think you're right in bringing it up.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Because it is, most of us, well, not most of it, I don't know. A lot of people hear that word surrender, and it kind of has a negative connotation,
Totally.
like giving up,
Yeah.
right? Letting go or whatever.
Right.
And I think, when we don't let go of things, we get dragged around by them.
What do you say, Brandon? You got to let things go or you're going to get dragged.
Yeah, let go or be dragged, right? And that definitely didn't come from me.
Well, to me, it
But,
came from you. So I think about that often, actually, both in, commitments and things that I'm doing, but also emotionally. What do I need to let go of? Because it is going to hold me down. It is going to drag me down. And I'm trying to lift myself up, lift each other up, and help other people find their way to do that too. You can't do that if you're being weighed down by all this crap. So forgiveness is an easy way to lighten the load a little bit for yourself as well.
100%.
Absolutely.
We cannot let other people, take up our headspace. I mean, I got enough people living up here. Nobody else can be up here rent free. And that's the thing, that's what it is. People will stay up there if you let them, and they're not doing it on purpose. You're the one keeping them there. You're locking them in your head when you're holding resentments. And coming back to the surrender thing, to me, surrender is just putting down my weapons and my armor, right? And allowing myself to be a little bit more, vulnerable. And when I do that, the rest of the world does that too. And I find that, if I'm wearing weapons and armor, I'm doing is creating a wall between me and the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I feel like by doing that too, you're keeping alive your own feelings of hurt and blame and anger, probably, that can really screw up where you're trying to go.
Yeah, God, it's like wearing a sweatsuit, man. Just like,
Yeah, those people are crazy.
yeah, yeah, right. That's horrible. It's a horrible experience. It keeps all that stuff in.
I was
You're
like,
like, oh,
oh.
right. Everybody's like, oh, sweatsuits are awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But that's what resentments are. That's what all that armor is, right? It keeps all that crap in, and it doesn't allow you to interact with your world except in a violent way. Right.
It's a very violent image, wearing a sweatsuit and holding all that crap, and I can't let go of that. It's a perfect mental
Terrible.
picture.
well, that's
We're perfect.
but it's true. When you're wearing armor and walking around with weapons, you're looking for enemies, right?
Mhm.
Right. You don't wear that stuff when you're amongst friends.
Right.
So that's all I got for now. I don't know about you guys.
What about you, Nick? Any final wise words to live by? You've got some.
Well, to answer your question earlier, I didn't really. I think we probably covered it, but Brandon said, I think he said withhold judgment, right, and sort of pray for your enemy, which means to be compassionate and empathetic and try to figure out where they came from. So, like, to piggyback on that, I would say reflect on that situation or get that outside perspective. I think that it can be a big part of it. And then the empathy thing too, like putting yourself in their shoes. Where did they come from? Were they being aggressive, or was it just kind of they were in the moment? They had some stressful things otherwise that were happening, and trying to expand your awareness of the whole situation, I think would be pretty significant. And this whole thing, like I said, because it's a process, this has to do with neuroplasticity and creating the ability to do this, to forgive, to let things go. It's all about stretching and growing and rewiring things in your neurological circuitry.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is absolutely a practice. And the more it takes reps, right? It's like anything else.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
You have to do it over and over and over again, and do it imperfectly and screw it up, and and keep coming back. Nick, I think what you said about the outside perspective is probably the biggest help in that regard, because it is hard to hold ourselves to that to a fair standard even. Right. So I think that's huge.
Yeah.
All right. Are we going to get out of here?
Yeah, I think that's probably good. Everybody, if you enjoyed this, let us know. If you're out there, you're listening somewhere else, come join us. Drop the fat, not the tacos.
Yeah. Come be in the group with us. We have a good time in there, and the reason we created that community is to have a safe and fun place for people to talk about the things that that they need to talk about relating to their health. And when you think about it, all things relate to your health. So nothing is really off the board there in terms of what we talk about in there. But yeah, come ask questions. Come be in a place where you have access to professionals who have been doing this for quite a while.
And even if we don't really answer, we'll care enough to try to figure it out, and even if we don't know, maybe somebody else does. It's always worth getting that outside perspective, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, share with us. Tell us how you practice forgiveness. Tell us how you remind yourself to forgive others. We want to know what you do too, because we are always trying to work on being better at all of these things we talk about ourselves. We're not telling you about it because we're perfect and we've got it down. We're telling you about it because we struggle at it every day too. So tell us how you practice forgiveness and some helpful tips for you, and share it with the group so that we can all learn and grow together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just mentioned a second ago, you have two fitness professionals, health and wellness professionals in this group, but Rebecca, you've gone through a lot of the stuff that we talk about in here, and you have a totally fresh perspective on a lot of these things as well. So your contribution to the group is just hugely valuable, because I think, you know, you can probably relate on a different level to some of the stuff that comes up in that
Right.
group.
Totally. I still text Brandon and Nick all the time asking them for help and advice when I'm struggling. So I'm right there with all of you down in the trenches trying to figure it out. So
Yep.
I'm here.
We're all leaning on each other, but do come to the group. You know, lift other people up, be lifted up by other people. That's what it's all about in there. Ask the questions, and you know, please keep coming back. We love you. Bye, guys.
All right. And I think we're cutting out. But next week, if you guys are open to it, I did quite a bit of research the other day on just motivational techniques. If you guys are open to it, let's talk about that, eh?
Yeah. And if you have ideas too, a lot of our talks come from, you know,
Yes.
from topics that you guys bring up. So
Right. Ask as many questions as possible, because that gives us the reason it gives us another topic to talk about.
totally.
So, all right.
Cheers.
Bye,
Thanks for being
everybody.
here.